I was about to head off back to Puerta del Rosario to a hardware store when I noticed a man standing on the other side of the road, gazing my way. Already the project had aroused interest, I thought, feeling pleased if a little intruded upon. A neighbour, perhaps, or a nosy holiday-maker. Curious, I walked over. He crossed the road and we met on the pavement. "Lovely morning for it," I said with a cheery grin. He didn't return my warmth. Hearing I was English, he said in a low and thickly accented voice, "What are you doing on this land? It is private." "The land is private," I said. "I own it." He shook his head. "You cannot. It belongs to the Sejas family." "Not anymore. They sold it." "That's impossible. Not even the government could make them sell." The government were not offering enough. He eyed me appraisingly, perhaps a little taken aback, as though I didn't appear to him the type to be rich. "You're English, and you buy this?" He tilted his head at the ruin. "What for? A hotel?" "I bought it to live in it." Who the hell does he think he is, treating me with such disdain? We both looked back at the ruin, all forlorn and dilapidated, its windows and door cavities boarded up, the render crumbling off what walls still stood. I took the opportunity to steal a glance at this abrupt and somewhat rude man who was taking an extreme and perhaps possessive interest in my house. He was tall, over 6 foot, slim and fit. He had long black hair, tied back in a ponytail, framing a well-proportioned face, with an intelligent turn to his mouth and a fervent glint in his deep-set eyes. The swarthy complexion indicated a southern European lineage. A local? I placed him in his late 30s. A satchel, grubby, worn and bulging, hung from his left shoulder. "A big house, no?" he said in his stilted English. "You have a husband? Children? A large family?" I found his prying intrusive. "Only me?" "Wow!" I could detect the judgment in that simple word, even in Spanish, and he wasn't referring to my marital status. I was awash with guilt. Guilt that didn't belong to me, but to expats in general. There were too few affordable dwellings for the locals, while foreigners bought up the housing stock at exorbitant prices and lived out a paradisiacal existence on land that really wasn't theirs. In essence, the trend was a form of colonization, and it was a common complaint in the Spanish social media groups I was in. The key difference in my case was not many foreigners bought ruins. No matter where you lived, they were notoriously expensive to restore, not to mention time-consuming. Standing before the tall and mysterious stranger, I was made to feel as though I had committed the ultimate cultural transgression. I had no right of ownership. Worse, I sensed he might have thought I was appropriating local history. I should have bought an apartment in Coralejo, like everyone else of my sort, and left the hinterland well alone. My notion that I was doing the island a public service dashed. My second day on the island as a resident, and something sour pervaded my being. I hadn't realized how much I wanted my choice to restore a ruin and save it from demolition sanctioned, not until that very moment when it wasn't. I couldn't help seeing the absurdity in the situation too. For what ordinary local could ever afford the expense of the purchase, let alone the building work? Such projects had become the terrain of the rich and the government. This man before me should be thanking, not condemning me. The wind picked up, catching the ends of my headscarf and using them to slap my face. I brushed the fabric away and shifted my stance. With my back to the building, I gazed up at the stranger, and some part of me, call it self-preservation, compelled me to heal the rift forming between us. I did not want animosity from a man I suspected would pop round at whim. "I'm Claire." I held out my hand. He hesitated, took it, and said, "Paco."